Coming your way on today's show, we have put together the perfect Lakers offseason plan. But first, we talk about this all the time. The Lakers as a franchise and the brand are iconic. So too are the players who have played for this franchise. So before we hop into today's show, who is your favorite Lakers player of all time? I'm going Kobe Bryant. You can be with me on that or give me another Lakers legend in the comment section. Welcome into the Lakers Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. Coming your way on today's show, we have put together the perfect Lakers offseason plan to get this team back into that title contention window. Obviously, this is going to be a busy offseason for Los Angeles by way of reshaping this roster, maybe pulling off some trades. We'll see what they do in free agency as well as the NBA draft. But the point here being there are a lot of moves that need to be made, and hopefully they follow the advice from me and producer Sam Brown. A warning before we start to dissect all of this. Not all of this activity is actually going to happen, but hopefully Rob Pelinka and the Buss family, they're going to watch today's show and say, you know what? Chase Senior, Sam Brown, they can be executives for this front office because I love how they reshape this Lakers roster. So we start off with this. It's really a multi-step plan that we put together. And the first obvious step that needs to take place, probably before anything else, figure out what's going on with Russell Westbrook and trade Russell Westbrook to the Indiana Pacers. How about this potential Los Angeles-Indiana trade that can help out Indiana, but really help out Los Angeles, especially LeBron James and Anthony Davis? The Lakers make a trade sending Russ to Indiana in addition to Talen Horton-Tucker, who said the other day, I'm best when the ball is in my hands. So you get that wish by going to Indiana, as well as some draft capital, first-round pick in 2027, as well as a 2023 second-round pick. And going to Hollywood, going to Los Angeles, is Buddy Hield and Malcolm Brogdon. You get a playmaker and Malcolm Brogdon who can really score at all three levels. And then for Buddy Hield, the ultimate floor spacer who has really been the apple of the Lakers' eye the last couple of off seasons as they got so close at the trade deadline last year and trying to make a trade for Buddy Hield, then in the offseason trying to make a trade for Buddy Hield once more, but then pivoting and making that deal for Russell Westbrook at the last minute. Now, for Buddy and Brogdon, I really think they fit LeBron James' style. LeBron has to have the basketball in his hands, but occasionally, when he goes down low, when he's off the floor, those duties can then be handed off to Malcolm Brogdon, and Buddy Hield can play with any semblance of players because he likes to hover around the three-point arc. And it was clear from the start of the Russell Westbrook experiment that his playing style clashed with LeBron. So I want to hear from you. Get into the shoes of Rob Pelinka. If you could make one move for the Lakers this offseason, what would it be? We just broke down that trade of Russell Westbrook. We have a lot more to get to on today's show. Number two, get Anthony Davis right and get him ready to play more center. Now, Anthony Davis has said in the past, I don't like playing center. That's not my preferred position. You know what, AD? After you had a bad season this past year, you don't have any say as to what your role is going to be, and that's going to come from the head coach. At least I hope so. Anthony Davis in September said this. There was the expectation, and that was discussed, that I expect to play center. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. Me and Frank Vogel talked about it a couple of times, and that's the plan. Right now, nothing is set in stone, but we want to see what that looks like, and I'm comfortable with that. Now, he said at that time that he was comfortable with it, but that has often clashed with what Anthony Davis has actually believed because he has said in the past, I don't prefer to play center. I know this about Anthony Davis, given how he played this past year with the injuries once again, him shooting less than 20% from three. He was good defensively, but really, he was only elite on that side of the floor. Wasn't available enough. He should be embarrassed by how this past year went for him, as well as this basketball team. That's why I don't think he should have any say as to what position he plays. If that means that him playing center makes the Lakers a better basketball team, that's what he should do at the end of the day. Step number 3 on our ideal and perfect offseason plan, pry Nick Nurse out of Toronto, go big fish hunting, and find your Hollywood star to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers to try to get that 18th championship. Is Nick Nurse about to lead the Raptors back from a 3-0 deficit, which would make the Toronto Raptors the first team in the history of the NBA to climb out of a 3-0 hole in the playoffs? First couple of games of that playoff series against the Philadelphia 76ers, Doc Rivers had outcoached Nick Nurse. But in Game 5 in Philadelphia, without really playing a guard outside of Gary Trent Jr., without Fred VanVleet, the Raptors put it to Philadelphia. They go back home for Game 6, and I think Philly is in danger of being the first team to lose a 3-0 lead in the course of a playoff series. A big credit for that, Nick Nurse, and the job that he's doing. He's one of the best coaches in the NBA. I continue to harp on that here on the Lakers Report. Now, if you want more Lakers news and rumors videos, this is your one-stop shop. We continue to gain subscribers like crazy over the last couple of weeks. Buckle up. It's going to be a huge offseason for Los Angeles, and we have you covered with multiple videos per week. So either hit that red subscribe button down below or go to youtube.com/LakersTV. Step number 4, Johnson, Reeves, options. What do their futures look like for Los Angeles? And I think the Lakers should pick those options up because I think these guys can really round out the roster. Now, should they have roles like they did last year where Austin Reeves is playing 23 minutes per game and Stanley Johnson is playing nearly 23 minutes per game? No. But if these are second or third options at their respective positions, these are decent depth pieces. They're young and they're athletic. You take a look at their numbers there, pretty solid players. I think it'd be wise for Los Angeles to pick up their options. Number 5 in our offseason plan, use the mid-level exception on a 3-and-D wing. And how about a guy like Robert Covington? So you look at these mid-level exception wing targets, guys who won't really cost you a lot of money and guys who can really add to this roster. Now, among these 3 on your screen right here, Robert Covington, Otto Porter Jr., TJ Warren, I like Covington the best. He's younger, has more three-point ability and better defensive ability than those 2 latter options. Otto Porter has played really well for the Golden State Warriors, but he's a little bit longer in the tooth, and I want some more youth on this team. And as far as TJ Warren goes, hyper score doesn't give you much defensively. And I think Covington can be a winning piece for a team that hasn't won a lot of games over the last decade or so, tail end of Kobe's career, and when LeBron James has been on this team, and then the gap in between Kobe and LeBron. You need a winning culture, and as part of that, you need winning players, and Covington can be a part of that winning formula. So those are 3 mid-level exception 3-and-D wings who the Lakers could look to bring in for pretty affordable prices. Pick one to sign among Rocco, Otto Porter Jr., as well as TJ Warren. C for Covington, P for Otto Porter, W for TJ Warren. Get those votes into the comment section right now. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's great. But it's not the only video platform that we're pushing out content on. We are also pushing out Lakers news and rumors videos on Rumble. Free and uncensored content. If you go to rumble.com/LakersTV, sometimes we put videos only on Rumble and not on YouTube. And in addition to Lakers content, sports, news, politics, tech, business. I can curse on the Rumble app without being penalized for it. And we continue to grow to the platforms that you as the viewers use. Right now on the Lakers Report, we've been growing really rapidly on YouTube, but also on the Rumble side of things. But we're still trailing NBA Now under the Chat Sports umbrella and Golden State Warriors Today. Head to rumble.com/LakersTV, and when you're there, hit that green follow button. Number 6, you want to bring back Carmelo Anthony? I'd be fine with it. At times last year, he was one of the better Lakers rotational players. And the fact that he's still doing what he's doing at the twilight of his career is a credit to him for getting his body in shape, but continuing to work on his game. 13 points per game in 26 minutes per a year ago with Los Angeles. Now, in terms of wins and losses, it didn't work out for Carmelo and the Lakers, but this guy can still play. He shot nearly 38% from beyond the arc and 44% from the field. Coming in off the bench as a scorer, I like him as an option who, again, won't cost that much money on a team that does have some financial constraints. There was a report that dropped on Monday about the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat being dark horses to sign Carmelo Anthony in free agency. He will have suitors for a couple of reasons. Name value, but also the fact that he shot almost 38% from the floor and 38% from distance. Those are valuable components for a bench role in today's NBA. Number 7, and this kind of fits the mold of Carmelo Anthony, but fill the roster with size, which Carmelo does have, and experience, which Carmelo has. But also, in addition to Carmelo Anthony, veteran minimum options are going to be available for the Lakers to bring in. And keep in mind that, yes, the Lakers had a bad year this past campaign, but this is still a sought-after team that players want to play for. Andre Iguodala, we'll see if he has another year left or if he decides to hang up his basketball kicks. Nicholas Claxton, JaVale McGee, Hassan Whiteside, DeMarcus Cousins. Obviously, outside of Andre Iguodala, those latter 4 players do fill some needs in the front court. If you don't want to bring back a player like Dwight Howard, maybe you go elsewhere with one of those options. Your ideal offseason target for the Lakers is who? Do you want to go after a star? You want to round out this roster with a couple of other players? Drop me a name or names in the comment section. Lastly, our guide for the perfect Lakers offseason plan does include the King, LBJ, the ageless wonder, the bionic man, LeBron James signing that contract extension. LeBron had one of the best offensive seasons that he's ever had in his NBA career, and even though he's 37 years old, set to turn 38 in December, LeBron James proved to all of us this year that he is still at the peak of his powers as a scorer, as a distributor, as a rebounder, and at times, yes, he has to pick and choose his spots defensively as well. But how about this potential lineup? We have just solved a lot of the problems that we saw come to fruition, that we saw surface last year for the Lakers. They didn't have a lot of athleticism. They didn't have a lot of length. Their roster and the starting 5 especially and the closing 5 didn't make a lot of sense. They also lack shooting and playmaking. This potential lineup solves a lot of those issues. Malcolm Brogdon playing point guard, Buddy Hield hovering around the three-point arc. You have your 3-and-D guy in Robert Covington, Anthony Davis at the 5, and LeBron James can play any position on the floor. And then you have your bench of bringing back Kendrick Nunn coming off of injury, Austin Reeves, Stanley Johnson, Carmelo Anthony, and Wenyen Gabriel. That right there is a pretty good team and a much deeper team than we saw last year with LA. And obviously, as part of that Lakers offseason guide, you have to find a head coach. We'll see if it can be a guy like Nick Nurse. Whatever moves the Lakers do make this offseason, we'll keep you in the know right here on the Lakers Report. That's why you have to subscribe. And thanks so much for watching today's show.